Hey guys, so this is our first Chalk Talk here on Tuesday nights at 6:30, and I got two talking points for you. And before I get too much deeper into this, let me apologize ahead of time if there's some loud banging or yelling or any of that kind of stuff going on. I've got a toddler upstairs who is going stir crazy, so again, let me just apologize for that right up front because I know it's probably going to happen. So, two talking points tonight. Number one is the upcoming protein challenge. We're going to start that on Thursday. That's the 28th, and that's going to go through June 11th. Okay, and technically, I think if you count that up, it's actually 15 days. I just had kind of a weird blip there. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. But again, the challenge is going to go Thursday, the 28th through June 11th. And so it's a total of 15 days on the calendar. And essentially what that is, okay, we're going to break that up by body weight. And I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. So if you are in the 100 to 150 pound range body weight, your job during those 2 weeks is to get 100 grams of protein a day. Okay, if you are 150 to 200 pounds in terms of body weight, your goal is to get 150 grams, and if you are like me in the 200 plus category, your goal is to get 200 grams. And basically what we'll do is each day of the challenge, we're going to put out hey Gina, each day of the challenge, I'm going to put a post up, and all I want you to do during the day of the challenge is when you are done, when you have that box checked off, when you've gotten in all your protein, I just want you to go to that post and say, I'm done. I don't need you to tell me what category you're in. I don't need any of that. I just want you to basically raise your hand and say, I finished for that day. Okay? So that's what the protein challenge is. Again, starts on Thursday. I had a question earlier. Why are we doing this? Why that amount? The person that asked the question stated that this was going to be a significant jump over what they're currently doing, and why we want this much protein in your diet. A couple different reasons. Reason number one is protein keeps you satisfied, right? So there's a high satiety factor with protein, which means that there's going to be less cravings, right? So if you're one of those folks who finds yourself sitting on the couch at the end of the night, binge watching Netflix or, whatever, and you find yourself craving something. It could be habit, right? It could be that you're just used to eating and that's what you want to do. But if it's an actual physiological thing going on there, it may be that you just need a little more protein in your diet over the course of your day, right? Because again, protein helps your meals to stick with you. So having a high level of protein in there will make those meals stay with you for a while. Okay, that's number one. Number two is if you're training hard, right, especially from a strength training standpoint, you want that protein in your diet to help with recovery. Because remember, part of the strength training process is there's a little bit of damage that happens to that muscle. That's one of the reasons we wake up sore, especially after a new workout, right? So there's a little bit of damage to that muscle, and the protein helps that to heal, right? It helps it to recover, and just helps you bounce back from those workouts a little bit faster. Third reason we want that protein in there is because it will help speed up metabolism. Now, when I say that, it's not a huge amount, right? Really what we're talking about is something called the thermic effect of food, and essentially what that means is there is an energy cost for your body to digest food. Okay, it's easier to digest carbohydrate than it is protein. So there's going to be a little more of an energy expenditure in the act of your body breaking down that protein. Now, is it a huge difference? It's probably not a ton, right? It's probably not a tremendous amount of caloric difference there. but every little bit helps, right? So again, just kind of go back over those 3 reasons. Protein keeps you satisfied, helps to improve recovery from your workouts, and last, it's just going to help bump that metabolism up. So that's why we chose protein for this first challenge. Now, one of the things I want you guys to keep in mind with this is I'm not asking you to increase your caloric intake, right? I don't necessarily want you to keep doing everything else that you're doing and stack on more protein on top of that. Ideally, what we're going to do with this is we're going to replace some things with more protein so your caloric intake stays relatively the same, but the ratio of your macros, your protein, your fats, and your carbohydrates will shift more towards that higher protein diet. So that's the challenge, and again, that starts Thursday and goes through Thursday, June 11th. Second talking point, and I'm just going to keep this one really short for you guys. I want to talk about tracking, okay, and why you should be tracking something. I'm actually going to put a couple of pictures in the comments below this video of some of the charts of folks that are tracking things like their circumference measurements and body weight. And I want you to see what those graphs look like. That was the aforementioned toddler that I was talking about. If you guys could hear that on the microphone, I'm not sure or not. So again, I apologize for that noise. But why should you be tracking something? Well, the easiest way to look at this is if you're not tracking something, how do you know if you're making progress, right? How do you know if what you're doing is working if you're not tracking? So that's number one. Number two, if you're not tracking something, I guess the question that I would have is, do you have a meaningful goal? It's easy to say I need to change and I want to do something different than what I am currently doing. But if you're not tracking, do you really understand where it is you're trying to get? Right? It's the analogy that I use a lot of times, or that makes sense to me, is a road trip. Right? I'm trying to get from La Plata, Maryland to, let's say, Fredericksburg, Virginia. That's a specific destination, and that's a specific goal that I'm trying to get to. So if I track myself, if I kind of track where I'm at on the Google Maps or something along those lines, I can see my progress in that process, right? But if I just say, well, I want to get out of La Plata, I could go pretty much anywhere. I could head towards Fort Washington, right? I could head towards Richmond, Virginia. I could head towards Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and those are all going to be very different places. And not that there's anything wrong with any of them, but those 3 places may not have any specific meaning to me. They may not be a meaningful destination to me. So again, to tie that back in, if you're not tracking something, do you really understand what it is you're trying to accomplish? If you do that, then that gives you some direction on what to start tracking. Okay? If it's something as simple as I just want to see my body weight go down because it's easier on my knees, or my back doesn't hurt as much, or something along those lines. Okay, that's a start. That's an easy place to start. And the third reason I think you want to track is accountability, right? There's a great quote, and I can't remember who the guy. I think it was Jim Rohn, but I'm not 100% sure. That said something to the effect of, and I'm going to butcher this quote here, but it's, what gets measured gets managed, right? I'm sure you guys have all heard that before. What gets measured gets managed. So if there's something you are trying to improve in, you got to take measurements to it, right? The accountability takes it another step, though, because what gets measured gets managed, but what gets reported gets improved. So the tracking of something meaningful will help keep you accountable and keep you on the path, keep you going in the right direction. So what I would advise you guys to do is figure out something that is meaningful to you. It could be your circumference measurements. It could be the number of push-ups you can do. It could be performance related, right? So a couple of weeks ago I had you guys all do or at least the folks that are in the Daily Bell, I had you guys do a swing test. So we did 15 minutes and to see how many swings we could get packed into that time frame. Well, it's not going to be too long before I'm going to ask you to do that again, and we're going to see if that number changes at all, right? So that should be or signify a change in your endurance, right? So tracking is important, and really I can't tell you what to track. I can give you some guidelines, some kind of basics, and I can point you in the right direction, but it's got to be something that's meaningful to you. And remember, the app, the web platform that we are using, has a metrics function on it. And so if you tell me what it is you want to track, I can go in there and put it in there for you. Actually, I believe you can do it from your end through the app as well. So if there's a specific measurement that you want to be taking, start tracking it and then watch it. Record it or report it, once a week. Let's see what happens with that. So I do have a question here from Chrissy. Dave, can you give a sample of how to consume that much protein? Well, it depends on which category you're going to be in. So if you're, let's say you're in the first category, you're in that 100 grams. Really, if you just do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 30 grams of protein could be 1 to 1.5 chicken breasts. You do that at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you've probably got your protein requirements in. I think what would be helpful for a lot of folks is to track. How about that? What a way to tie that in. Track your protein intake during the challenge so you can see whether or not you're doing it. And for some of you, the first couple of days may be kind of enlightening as far as what that actually looks like. I can tell you, for me, to get over 200 grams of protein, or to get 200 grams of protein, I don't have to try very hard because I'm a meat person. It comes very easily to me. There are protein supplements out there that are pretty good. The whey and casein protein supplements are good, but you certainly don't have to go a supplement route in order to get that in. You can absolutely do that with Whole Foods. You don't have to go out and buy anything special to do this. Eggs are excellent sources of protein. You just have to be mindful of the caloric impact of having the yolks if you're going to do the entire egg. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't have the yolk. I'm just saying be mindful of the caloric impact of it. And then, all of your meats, chicken, beef, fish, any kind of fowl, turkey, that kind of thing, those all count. And like I said, a good chicken breast, 3 to 4 ounces, I believe, is going to have somewhere between 25 to 28 grams of protein. That's relatively simple. It's just a matter of being intentional about it. Amber just chimed in, eggs, chicken, seafood, that's all protein. An easy way to tell if something is a protein is if it had eyes or was going to have eyes over the course of its life cycle, right? So again, eggs, if you see that out, eventually that's a chicken with some eyes in it, right? So eggs are protein, chicken, lamb, beef, can't remember if I said fish, turkey, all of that's all protein. Other sources, things like Greek yogurt, But if you're going to go the Greek yogurt route, if you're going to go the yogurt route in general, just be mindful of how much sugar is in the yogurt that you're going to get, right? Because it's a lot of companies will pack those things full of sugar to make them a little bit more palatable. So just be mindful of that. You guys have any other questions? Because if not, I'm going to jump off of here. And like I said, I didn't want to keep you guys on here for too long. Now, if you come back and watch this video later on, I'll be watching the comment section on this. So if I didn't answer something, Chrissy, if I didn't answer your question clearly enough, you can always ask it again, and I'll try to elaborate just a little bit more. But otherwise, guys, have a great night.